Welcome to Glens Common Council. We begin our council meeting tonight with a public hearing. It's August 13, 2024, and this public hearing is regarding a local law to amend Chapter 208-48, Schedule 1 Traffic Control Signals, and 208-54, Schedule 7 Stop Intersections. This particular intersection is on the corner of the very famous corner of South and Elm Street, and it's to put a four-way stop in where we once had a light, a more restrictive setting to increase safety, and this just changes that code as we had this assessed through a traffic study as part of our DRI and that part of our redoing of most of South and most of Elm Street, crossing south, starting on Pine, crossing south and going all the way down to Park and Elm. And so if there's anyone from the public who'd like to discuss the South and Elm corner in this public hearing, we'd love to hear from you. If no one does come up, we're going to sit quietly for 3 minutes, keep this public hearing open, and close it at 7:30, and open our regular common council meeting.
Mayor, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Okay, my question is this. I apologize because I didn't get back in town till last night. So in that resolution, it says there's a four-way stop at Elm and Park.
Yeah.
Where's the fourth leg to that?
It would be it's right across. There's another parking area, so it's really technically a three-way stop with a highly trafficked parking area or entrance into the road there. So it's not necessarily we're putting it there so they stop and see. And it was a request from both from the business owners that were finding people were trying to get around our traffic circle and pulling off of Glen onto Park and trying to make that corner. And if it was a green light, they were zipping right along it, and it was quite a dangerous situation.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So this was to my request from last council meeting about adding the four-way stops into the code?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I hadn't heard anything about it before. So
I'm sorry. Yeah. I believe it was on the agenda, but I'm not sure.
I
Fair
missed it.
Yeah. I think we all agreed that time to make our code match our laws.
Yeah, I don't have any problem.
It's a good start. All right. It is now 7:30. We will close the public hearing on amending local law chapter 208-48, Schedule 1 Traffic Control Signals, and 208-54, Schedule 7 Stop Intersections. We will now open the regular common council meeting. It's still Tuesday, August 13th, 2024. It's now 7:30. We will ask for a pledge of allegiance, and I apologize, I do not see on my thing, anybody remember who was the last time to lead us? Ed was. So please rise for the pledge of allegiance, and Councilman Landry to lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
now open up public comment. The council, we open up with a public comment period. Anybody like to address the council, please come to the microphone. Give us your name and your address, please.
Good evening, everyone. For the record, I'm John Lapper, attorney with the law firm of Bartlett Pontiff, Stewart and Rhodes at 1 Washington Street, and also a member of 1 Washington Street Development, LLC. So over the years, we've amassed a total of, I think, 8 parcels at the corner of Washington and Glen Street, where our law firm is, with the intention that someday they would be redeveloped. 6 of the parcels are in the GC1 zone, and there are 2 parcels that we acquired more recently. One was a former law firm on Harlem Street, and one a vacant parcel on East Notre Dame. And we're asking that they be rezoned to general commercial 1 like the rest, so that it all could be developed together. The buildings that are on the site are tired and old. They were when we bought them. The old law firm building at 10 Harlem has been vacant for a while. We had tenants for a while, but not in the last few years. So it's all right for redevelopment, and I think with what Stewart's is doing diagonally across the street, good for that whole section of town to be brought up. So we're asking tonight that you refer it to the planning board for their recommendation on the rezoning, and hope that we'll be back here to discuss it with you next month.
John, you're referring to the last, is it the second? Last?
Item 27.
Item 27. And that is not regarding, you just mentioned some rundown properties, but if I understood it correctly, the 2 parcels that you're asking to go to the planning board to consider rezoning, they don't have buildings on them.
They don't. They're both vacant at this time, yes.
The lot itself is vacant?
Yep, there are 2 lots, 1 on each street, and they're both vacant.
13 East North, should be Notre Dame Street,
Yep,
and 16 Harlem Street.
yes,
And they're both vacant.
yes.
Vacant properties or vacant buildings?
Vacant properties.
John, will that make that entire block GC1?
Not the whole block. There's a couple of buildings on East Notre Dame that would still be R1C, as well as 1 other lot across from the church on Glen Street.
Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you, John.
Thanks, everybody.
We're still open for public comment. If there's anybody who'd like to have a public comment in the city, please come forward. Peter, do we have anybody online? All right. There you go. Thank you. We'll now close public comment. I wanted to have a moment for Mark Powers, our incoming controller, to come up to the city. I believe you have Mark's resumes in your packet. I also have copies for you if you don't would like to see them. Welcome.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you very much for having me. This is a great opportunity to meet everybody, and I don't know you by names yet, but I'm certain that we're going to get to know each other.
Our names, right?
Yeah. And I'm certain they're all online too. But I just came here to introduce myself. And first off, I want to say Suzanne is an asset. You're losing a great employee. The amount of years she's been here, the amount of work she's put into the city, I really hope I can live up to that standard. A little bit about myself. I come from South Glens Falls, graduated South Glens Falls. My daughter is graduating 2 years from South Glens Falls. We love this community. Go Bulldogs.
Yeah.
So,
Hold that against you.
no.
Do a motion to eliminate the position.
This is what's nice. You know, we're such a community. We're good people, and I'm very excited what I can bring to you. I went far, far away for college, always down to Siena, right, Albany. I spent several years, about 9 years, working in a banking institution as a CFO. So I've moved on to other opportunities, nationwide companies as a controller. All in all, I worked 24 years in finance and accounting. So I know my abilities. Adapting to what we're doing here, I'm really excited about. I really am. So thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Any questions?
No, I'll just make a comment.
Yeah.
I'm a graduate from Siena College. And
Long Island
as well, so you must be Einstein, right? Exactly.
That's right.
So that's a good thing. I know you worked for Dave Bucco down at the Rivers Casino.
Mm-hmm.
I graduated from Siena with him, so that's a good accolade for you. And I'm really glad for you to admit that Suzanne's shoes are going to be big to fill.
Yeah, they are.
And I think that our request from your office will continue to reflect our desires to make sure that we have all the information that we need to be good fiduciaries for the city's taxpayers. So welcome aboard.
Ron, thank you so much. Any other?
Well, I'll just throw in, my daughter was a recent graduate from Siena. So
We're all Siena.
you're in good company, so,
Yeah.
but no, we appreciate you stepping in. They are big shoes to fill. I remember when I was in the mayor's office when he hired Suzanne. So she has done an awful lot for us, and I have no doubt that you will do the same for our city. So thank you.
I appreciate your comments, James.
And so, thank you. If nobody else has any questions, Mark, I want to make sure I mention to everybody that Suzanne is staying with us. She's postponed her long-awaited trip to Germany, where she's going to visit with her family. And she's very excited, also has great things to say so far about Mark in his first week or so on the job. And so it's fantastic, and we're not, she's not running away on us, and that's been fantastic. So thank you.
I have promised my family a dinner at Mikado, so I am not going to sit out the rest of this meeting. Thank you very much for having me, Bill.
Thank you.
I hope it's a hibachi table. Particularly nice.
Let's see. Next up, we've got Jeff Flagg to come and talk to us about the DRI. And we've been asked about budgets, where we are, how things are going. Jeff?
Just so you know, I taught at Siena for several years, so must be a pervading
I
theme.
saw you on the blacklist.
That's right, that's right. And I saw you with detention. No, you're the
in a NCAA basketball.
Yeah, very good. That should count for
I just
something.
wanted to
That's right.
let everybody.
That's right. Okay, so I know we've been talking for several months. There've been some requests both from the mayor and some council members to try and get an update on where we are with the DRI. I don't want to use the term stonewalling, but I've been trying to hang on until I could give some concrete numbers, right? Because this has been going on for so long. But as we're getting closer to some sort of closure, at least as far as the finances, I wanted to sort of spend a little time sharing these with you. Give you a couple documents here. Let's make sure I have them. I got one. The first document there is something that several of you are probably familiar with. This was the resolution that was passed in 2018. Remember, the DRI we got that in early 2017, and then the budget wasn't really adopted until 2018, about April, I think. So that will be familiar to some of you. Then I'm going to give you another document that will sort of show a little bit more of where we are right now.
Jeff comes with slides.
Yeah, look at that. Look at that, even that Suzanne even do a little fancy thing there. So what you'll see in that resolution, I tried to sort of copy roughly verbatim with a couple small differences. You'll see as you go through the list of the first document that you have the budget that was adopted by the council with each individual project from the DRI, along with a couple separate projects, one being their store grant, two being the purchase of those buildings, sort of an amalgamation, if you will, which is why you ended up coming up with a budget back then of $11,470,000, which is, so it's not technically the $10 million DRI, which itself was only $9.7 million. Remember, $300,000 was spent for consultants at the beginning. You'll notice there's a $100,000 difference in the budget that I came up with here. That's mainly because if you look at the city culinary budget of $600,000 and the on the resolution, the downtown park of $600,000, there was actually $100,000 moved from the park to the culinary school. So it wasn't reflected in the resolution, but that really should have only been $500,000 for the pocket park. And if you look at my budget, you'll see, my reconciliation, you'll see that it's only $500,000. So a couple of other brief things. You'll see the Market on South being a $5 million grant, and then farther down on the resolution, the South Street corner, that was the Bonaccio buildings of $1.2 million. Those were actually put together when we finally got the grant through ESD, so you could see the one grant for $6.2 million on my reconciliation. And then finally, you'll see the streetscaping is shown as at the bottom of the resolution, $1.5 million. On the reconciliation, it's $1.675. That was because we had the broadband grant that we ended up not using, and we were able to reallocate that money. What happened in that case was that during COVID, a lot of the businesses that needed broadband had already gotten it. So by the time we actually got to sort of tackling the grant, there wasn't really any need for downtown broadband. So the Department of State allowed us to sort of transfer that money over. So that's why you see the 1.675 instead of the 1.5 million. So just to run through these very briefly, and you can see I did highlight the bottom there, but you can see the individual programs and projects that we did. The Student Culinary School really was a pass-through. The culinary school got the grant from through the city, did the project herself. I believe we didn't even take the money in. So if we did, it was strictly a pass-through on the ledger, so it didn't really affect us at all, which is why the money was spent, of course, but there was no real budget impact on the city. The GF Drive nonprofit and facade, well, real briefly, if you look at the resolution, it looks like you've got about 1.2 million, but that's first number is the summation of the other three, right? So the 600,000 in the resolution there is comprised of those three following, so it's a little confusing there. The entire was 600,000. We ended up spending about 782,000 total. Some of that was because there was never an account or an allocation of money for administration. So there was about 60,000 that was taken for administration, and then there were several projects that were completed, that were funded, that didn't qualify for reimbursement from the state for reasons I won't go into here. I'm happy to talk to you about them, but the fact of the matter was the projects were done, they were paid for, but that's what the overage was there. The Market Center and Market Square, obviously, the largest project we're still working on right now. You can see that that's at 1.6 million under budget, at least as we foresee it right now, and I think that's pretty close. Biggest problem we had with this project, for those of you who can recall, was that the original designs we had some preliminary designs from JMZ. When we tried to sort of use those as our foundational drawings for the market, we ended up with a pretty astronomical number for the building. It was about, I think it was somewhere in the vicinity of $8.5 million is what that building was going to cost us, and that really didn't include a comprehensive heating and cooling system. So we ended up going back to the drawing board, not once, not twice, but 3 different times, all trying to find something that would sort of fit into the budget and sort of accommodate the needs of the city. So a lot of the costs, quite frankly, were from Envision, the architect firm we selected from among 12 different, going back to literally back to the drawing board 3 different times. The third time, or the second time, they actually gave us 3 different iterations, and we couldn't make any of them work. Finally, I think it was the mayor, when he had come into office, had sat down and sort of come up with Envision and AJN Architecture, our owner's representative, and sort of came up with the leaf design that we sort of settled on. But that was a huge part of the overages we had. Another large part of the overages was from infrastructure, unforeseen infrastructure expenses, particularly around electric and water and sewer. One example was the water and sewer. We had planned to connect to the sewer system on South Street. Weren't able to connect to it. There was a National Grid duct bank in the way, and so we couldn't get to it in any way, shape, or form, so we had to redesign the entire project to do all the stormwater retention on site. Big cost, big overrun in the project. and sort of
How did we
reflect.
not know that?
It's a great question. We had been, the closest we got to understanding was, well, there's all sorts of things in South Street. Everybody who's worked on that has found unforeseen things. It's a wonderful question. I wish I could answer it. The problem we had there was when they dug up the street, or started to dig, there's in this case on the I guess you call it the west side of South Street, there's a huge duct bank, and it's National Grid cables that are encased in, I don't know, ceramic or something, 3 wide by 4 high. So it was something along this big, and only about a foot below grade on the street. And so there was no way for the sewer system to go under it, and then you have to go back up to the storm, which is on the other side, or you couldn't go over it, just wasn't enough room. So it's
Storm.
the storm.
Storm, we were planning on connecting
Correct.
stormwater to the stormwater
Correct.
that runs down south.
But not sure, the only reason they didn't have that is because we required them to do all their stormwater retention on site to begin with. So we ended up doing something that environmentalists would call a better idea to begin with. But I mean, obviously at the time we were trying to sort of, save costs where we could, and we've been working on the sources or the storm systems. But that was just the big cost there. Moving on, and I'll come back to individual questions if anybody has any later. The Restore New York grant was slightly under budget. We've got a little bit of money left in that budget, so pretty close to the amount that we used. The Pocket Park is not complete, but it's pretty close, and we've got a pretty good idea of what we're looking at. I think it's actually going to be a little bit under budget, quite frankly. But if it is, that money would probably go toward offsetting the streetscaping in the next line, which was under by about $300,000. The streetscaping issue, and I've talked to Jeremy about this, it's just the cost difference between 2018 and today. We started looking at the work that was done, the scope of the work. The costs have just gone up enormously in the last 6 years. So in the greater scheme of things, $300,000 on a $1.8 million project is not huge, but those were what they were. The Arts Trail, similar to the GF Drive and nonprofit money, there was just no administrative money allocated for that. And so for a couple consultant firms, there was money there, and that's the difference. The building acquisition, the 3 building acquisitions, the first 2 were included in the budget. The OTB, my guess is, just based on the fact that it's zeroed out, is that had already been determined. There was probably an agreement with that one. And then the Juice and Jar lot came in almost $100,000 under the amount that was budgeted. And then later on, it was determined that the Daily Double was also purchased to try and make a large enough lot for the market center as we had it now. So the subtotal then of that is a deficit of about 2.6 million. And, the mayor and I have been working with several people working on, the last big piece of the project, I think, is the sort of fit out of both the market center and Market Square, right? The farmers, no, not the farmers market, the makers market, the commercial kitchen, the fit out of the first floor of the incubator space. And we're sort of allocating that $1 million for that to cover those costs going forward. Does anybody have any questions about that? I know it's a lot of information at one time, and I'm happy to sit down with anybody individually if you have any questions, but does anybody have any questions right off the top? Yeah?
Jeff, go through that. So ACC got that $600,000 from the city. Explain to me.
It wasn't from the city, it was from the DRI.
But it came out of our DRI fund.
Correct.
So it's $600,000 from the city.
Okay.
Because it's $600,000 we didn't have to spend.
Yes, this was $600,000 that was earmarked as part of the DRI. Every one of these projects, with the exception of the acquisitions and the restore grant, were the pieces of the DRI that were approved by the Department of State. And the budget was sort of based, that resolution budget was based specifically from that document. And so the $600,000 could have very easily been, we oversaw it, we took the money in, we spent it. It may, I think it actually went directly to SUNY. Either way, it wasn't really on our budget. It was a sort of a net zero for the city.
And the only reason I say that is because this $10 million DRI was only $9 million when we got all done. If it was predetermined, we were going to give $600,000 to ACC, and the state required us to use $300,000 for a consultant.
That's right. It was essentially, yeah, you could say it was 9.1. 10 million minus 300 for the consultant and 600 directly to SUNY. That's right.
Okay, thank you. Oh, just one other question, or not a question, but then your question on South Street was going to be one of mine, which is, boy, they seem to be digging up skeletons every time they turn around over there. hopefully, having a GIS person on board will change some of that. I can tell you because I own property in downtown, when they come and talk to you about infrastructure that's in the street outside your building, and they take out these old maps, and then they go, oops, we don't have that page. Or, oops, that part of the page is ripped off.
I mean, if you remember when we've allocated more funds to the urban garden, it was because there was, unforeseen issues with the infrastructure because of the vaulting of the way the utilities run, and we haven't been able to do things with the grant that we had for the city hall because we don't have the electrical service that we would need to be able to do that. So it's like everywhere we turn around, we have a planning that works one way, and then when we get to brass tacks, we're finding out that we don't have what we think we have. It makes it really difficult, and this is where
No, it's absolutely a perfect example. And the funny thing is when I talk to people from like National Grid and say, well, how do you guys not know this stuff is here ahead of time? Their response, and I don't mean to throw anybody under the bus here, but sometimes go, oh, well, you see what it's like in Troy. Like that's cold comfort, to say, well, it's really bad in a lot of different cities. Bonaccia's having similar problems with some lines that they found on the market's current pavilion lot. There's a line that going right through there that doesn't show up anymore.
Nowhere, right?
Yeah.
And so, same with Dix Avenue, when we, the overruns that we had for Dix Avenue, when we redid it, we found an old water main that we didn't have on any of our maps.
Yeah.
One of the reasons we've advocated for the GIS person, because you go, well, do you really need it if they haven't been empty? Oh, absolutely. We got all this work, and it's on a flash drive somewhere. It's not getting put into our GIS system. So even when we're finding these things, they'll just be forgotten again and refound in another 20 years.
And this benefits, for example, Bonaccio only because in this particular project, they're working at Hot Shots, and they already know. So they already made some accommodations for the fact that they know that this thing is right in front of them. Otherwise, someone 5 years down the road would go, and unless we told them, they wouldn't know either. So I'm not here to make the solutions for that, but it's a problem. And maybe something for contingencies anyway. I wanted to show you guys one other slide, and I have another handout for you. Let's see. And so there's obviously there's the issues. Oh, Suzanne Scott asked me, I had to show you this, how she made this work. So this was, did she do it right? Oh, it's not going to work. I thought she told me she was going to do a special. It didn't work at all, so I guess that doesn't matter. Not only didn't it work, she had a special way.
At least you drew everybody's attention.
Yeah, no, I really captured everyone's attention. Let's see, how did I?
So Suzanne will know.
Oh, yeah, hold on, let's see if I can get this to, I won't even go to the next slide. Oh, yeah. She said if I click on this, it will show how, apparently it won't even go to the slide.
Click on the third day.
Okay. So, as we were looking at this, and I was trying to give the mayor sort of a summary of where we were, I decided to sort of go back and take a look a little more holistically at the entire DRI and the money that was spent at both city level, at state and federal level, and at the private level. And so what you see in this document is something that's very similar, right, in form to the previous one with the various projects. What I was really doing here was looking at the various investments for the various entities all told. And so if you look, for instance, Bob, you were talking about the City Culinary School, they actually got another grant of about $500,000 in addition to the $800,000 that they spent. So, when we talk about the DRI and the money, whether it was our city money or not, the fact of the matter is there was a net investment of $1.9 million to sort of create that facility over there in 14 Hudson. Different projects like the GF Drive and the Arts Trail, I talked about the small administration. It should be mentioned that all the organizations that participated in that contributed. In the case of GF Drive and the facade grants, some of them were 20% match, some of them were 50% match. But that's where you can see, for instance, the $165,000 in addition to the city's $182,000. So together you're talking about $350,000 matching a $600,000 grant to fund 20 different businesses and nonprofit organizations downtown. Obviously, you guys are familiar with the Bonaccio investments there, the streetscaping project, the Market Square fit out. We're actually looking at a grant for that one. I should have qualified that in my last slide, is that we've just applied for a CFA for a capital grant that might cover half of that $1 million that the mayor was looking for, we were talking about in the 3.6. So we just didn't want to earmark that in the event that we don't get the grant. The final analysis, though, is that you're looking at the DRI as about a close to $50 million project by the time all is said and done. The city will have spent all of the money of the DRI, which not every city can say, by the way. Many cities gave back parts, if not most, of their DRI money. Of the $50 million, the city's ultimate spend will have been about $4.1 million. It's about 8.5% of this close to $50 million investment. State and federal grants and tax credits in some cases, that's why I put state and fed, ended up being close to $14 million. And the private investment ultimately will end up being about $30.5 million. So when you're talking about, I know we're not talking about peanuts here when we're talking about the money, but relative to the amount of money that this has generated, I think we will find, when all is said and done, that this project from the state's perspective will have been exactly what they were looking for the DRI to do.
But that doesn't include the additional folks that are living downtown, shopping downtown, eating downtown, additional sales tax, property tax revenue, things like that. I mean, that's not reflected in this.
Correct. Yeah, there's actually a couple of things.
Those are our long-term revenue.
That's correct. There's actually a couple of things that are sort of off sheet here. For instance, we sold the pavilion lot for $275,000, I think. The LDC sold the two properties on, adjacent to the Market Center for $400,000. Those are not reflected. They're net gains, but they're not in these budgets because they weren't part of the budgets. We're going to have pilots on all 4 buildings, right? 3 of those are currently, there are no taxes on them, the 2 LDC buildings in the Market Center. So although they are pilots, they are vastly higher than 0, which is what they're generating now. In fact, the 2 buildings, 36 Elm and 49 South, cost the city indirectly through the LDC about $8,000 to $10,000 a year, and have, in the case of the 36 Elm, for close to 20 years.
Do you know, Jeff, how much the Bonaccio project got in tax credits?
It's hard to say exactly, because when you're talking about, if you're talking about the historic tax credits, I believe it's close to, 4.5. I think they're getting about $2.5 to $3 million in the historic tax credits. The housing tax credits are much more difficult to measure because a lot of those, as you know, as a housing person, are going indirectly to the folks over time. So I actually talked to Judy Caligero about that, and she said, it's a huge number, but I can't give it to you. So, I mean, we could spend some time, and I'll tell you what, down the road, it would be worthwhile for someone to do that, right? To sort of look and see, again, and who knows, the state at some point may say, listen, this is the kind of leverage we're looking for, and you've combined all these different sources, like federal tax credits, housing tax credits, grant monies, different kinds of private investment. I'm fairly comfortable that they'll be excited to see how this all will end up. And I know we're still creeping toward the end, but I think we're getting there.
The city's been very successful in working with the state to obtain tax credit money for developers in Broad Street Commons, in the entire West Housing Authority project that's going on. So it's been good that the state backed us up by supporting.
Absolutely. We just had a conversation. I just had a meeting today with EDC. There's a young fellow and his wife who are developers who are looking to buy Union Square, and are looking for tax credits to sort of put some housing in the back side of that, the Pine Street side of that building.
Yeah, that's another Union Square kind of complex.
Yeah, exactly. That's another.
It's kind of been left empty.
Yeah, and strangely enough, I don't want to belabor the infrastructure things, but the lines for the Market Center, actually, there's a pole right in the middle of this lot that we had to get rid of, and the lines actually went underneath, from Union Square, underneath Peter Shabbat's building, went back up into this one pole, and then connected. So we had to, the problem is we couldn't just tear that down because those were also connecting to 38 Elm, which is currently being occupied. So we had to do all sorts of underground work. I learned more about it than I care to know. Yeah, part of your job. Anything else?
So Jeff, maybe have you come back at the next council meeting and give a chance to these guys to chew on this and ask ahead of time. Do I understand it right that you're going to ask the council in the next, for a resolution to, from their second sheet, the $3.6 million?
That's correct. And yes, I'm happy to talk to anybody in the meantime. I'll come back to the next meeting. If anybody has any questions individually, I'm more than happy to share with you.
And what did you ask for that grant for the fit up?
If you look at the grant, the budget was 981 and we're asking for 450. That's for the fit out, right? You're talking about the capital program, yeah. And that's reflected in that last sheet, but not obviously the first one.
So on the next agenda, there will be a resolution for what we see here.
Correct.
No, for just the bottom.
Yes, for the gap.
Because the
What you
other.
can't-
Correct.
That's correct.
So it could be less, potentially.
It could potentially be less that we need pending the ESD or the CFA ESD grant, correct?
I'll probably reach out with questions I need to kind of
Sure.
digest.
Yeah. No, it's a lot to take it at once.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
And yeah, Jim, we have ESD pointed the grant out to us. So chances of us getting a good portion of that $1 million in a grant is there. But the way that Suzanne's explained it to Jeff and I, you don't,
Right.
what you have to do is
You
approve
need
the whole.
what you need.
Yeah, we knew we were going to get 9 when we approved this in 2018, when the council approved an $11.4 million budget. They knew they were getting 9.7 in grant money, right? But same here, you of the 3.6, you know we're applying for at least one more grant for 500,000.
Right.
And we believe there will be more money there. The state ESD is very, likes the idea that we've come up with for Market Square. They like the commercial kitchen idea. We're talking to Taste of New York. And so there will be more, but to do that work, the council would need
Yeah.
to approve the.
Correct. Yeah, we're cautiously optimistic about that, but obviously we can't.
That's why Jeff's, on the last document, when he shows you all the money being spent, the city's investment right now, the guess is, it'd be 4.1. So after all the grants come in and all that goes out, if you approve this, we're thinking that there will end up being a bond left for about 4.1 that we would use to pay off.
Well, yeah.
It's hard to know
It's-
because when it
it's-
goes from a ban to a bond,
Yeah, it's
what's come in so far.
It's a little, and I'm happy to, again, go into the weeds with anyone who wants to talk about it. The short version is, some of the monies here in this budget, right, when you're talking about the revenue, will come before, for instance, you have to bond it out. The DOS money, for instance, right, so the streetscaping, the pocket park money is sort of a pay-as-you-go. So you submit payouts to the state as you're doing the work and they reimburse you. ESD grants and HCR grants in some cases will say, we're only going to pay you when the entire project is complete. It's not determined at this point whether or not the ESD funds will have to be bonded or whether we would get the reimbursement before that. So it's not impossible to end up with let's call it a $10 million bond and $8 million coming in to pay it or something along those lines.
Right.
And again, we can get more details about that, but that's sort of what we're looking at. And again, a lot of,
In that case, too, there's some of the bonds that you can pay off ahead of time and avoid the interest. And then other ones where you're kind of stuck with the interest. So I would not want to be bonding out that kind of.
yeah, I was talking to Suzanne Cassich, who was in this morning and yesterday, about that and talking about callable bonds, and Mark was there and I said, let's move slowly with him. I don't want to leave it yet. So, but the idea, no, I mean, we're talking about, what callable bond, you're right. You can have callable bonds that you can pay when you get the money in. And certainly there's ways around that, but
Callable bonds
that's,
tend to be a higher interest rate, right?
they do, but the idea is that you're not going to have them as long. And so you have options, and those are options outside the scope of my job.
I'd asked this question one time before. So the company that we contracted with, I think their name is 3+1, that was going to talk and watch our investments and so on and so forth. Does part of that contract allow us to get from them some ideas about how to finance some of this stuff?
It's a good question. I'm not familiar with 3+1.
Well, we did, the council authorized to hire them to come in and try to give us advice on, well, one of the things that they did on investments that the city has and where get the best grades.
You know, one thing I will say, and I've learned more about this as in my role as the head of the IDA, you know, when you have some funds, for the last 20 years, it has not made much sense for organizations either that need safe money or that are required to sort of keep safe money to do much with it, because you couldn't make any money that was safe, right? You know, when interest rates are down at, you know, 0.5%, you know, you can go get a CD that's going to pay you 0.75%, but it wasn't really worth it anymore for the
I don't think
liquidity.
that's the case anymore.
Exactly. And now you're looking at times where very safe investments can get you 4 or 5%, right? So I think absolutely it makes perfect sense. In the case of the IDA, what we did is we went out and got some 6, 9, 12-month CDs, not huge extensions, you know, not particularly, but you know, suddenly we're getting 4.5% instead of 0.45%, which is what you were getting for 20 years.
Yeah.
That is exactly what we contracted with them.
Them to do, yeah, exactly. And I would hope that the new controller would meet with those people as well. I know this is a problem we're working on this point.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and the reality is there's probably a baked-in sort of institutional complacency because interest rates were so low for so long that you just didn't even sort of put it into your mix. That's probably what we're doing. Okay. Thank you. Let me turn this off and then, thank you guys, I appreciate your time. Sorry to take up so much of it.
Having that, next would be committee reports. Councilman Park.
No report.
Councilman Lee.
No report.
Councilwoman Thomas.
Yes, Building and Codes met last week. We got some updates from the department. They have moved into 333 Glen temporarily while the roof is being replaced on the building where DPW and Building and Codes was housed. We had a brief discussion continuing the talk we had about murals. We're going to talk about that again at a future meeting. We talked a lot about short-term rentals. Councilman Clark, I saw your email today following up on JD Ellingsworth, who does vacant property monitoring for us, had mentioned that he saw in an article that the county was again going to contract with Granicus, and some of you may remember our long lobbying efforts to get them to do that before, and then the previous treasurer had canceled the contract, so it's great that they're going to do that again, and I'm hoping that we can find out if we can get, you know, municipal access. It sounds like, Jim, they're hoping to do that. What our committee discussed initially was that we are about to go through the comprehensive plan and take a look at our zoning, and while I feel that that would be the best way to comprehensively consider how we want to handle short-term rentals. We don't want to wait for that process to be over because it might take a while. And if that process unveils a change to what we did, we can always change it. So we would like to start by getting some public input. I drafted a survey that I circulated to the committee, and I'm hoping to get some feedback on that. If that works out, we'd like to send that out to the public. And then we have booked the community room at the library for September 25th. And our hope is to be able to share the results of that survey and also just have a conversation. And at this point, just to get input, we want to hear from the community. What are the issues you're having? We want to invite stakeholders from all of the areas, you know, people who own short-term rentals, people who are involved in real estate, people who are neighbors, you know, everybody. And we'd like to just get a sense of what the issues are in our community and start there. So the Building and Codes Committee will be meeting again on the August 27th to consider that, and also to continue our conversation about murals and public art. The Recreation Committee met last week. You have 3 resolutions tonight from the Recreation Committee. One is for asbestos survey for the Eastfield Fieldhouse. If we do work or we're going to redo that, we have to do an asbestos survey to get a permit, so that's on here. Another one is for drawings for the pavilion at Murray Street Park, which we plan to redo. And the other is for ball wall at Murray Street because we've redone all the fields and that will be used for multi-field sports. And one of the big requests that we got from the athletic teams was to have a wall to practice. So we need to make sure that it's structurally sound and will not fall on anyone. So that's in there too. The other thing from the Recreation Committee is that we are moving forward with plans for a dog park. We have revitalized parks in every single ward in our city, and there are also playgrounds at all the elementary schools, so we feel like there are a lot of places where kids can go and play. The playground equipment that was at the playground at the firehouse, May and Ridge Street, needed to be removed. It was old. And we thought that with all of the density that we have downtown, that was a great location to put the dog park because people are already using it, they're taking their dogs there. Now we can actually fence it in and create a nice area in the city. We're also able to help out the fire department by creating a little more parking for them with this project. So stay tuned as we continue to work on that. We'll update you on when that will be open. And that's it.
Thank you. Councilman Lappin, committee reports.
The Technology Committee met on August 7th, and we'll be meeting again on September 11th, which is a week after the usual time because we're trying to push it out away from back to school. So we talked about the different Microsoft applications, about getting some training together for that, and we're kind of at the point of having Chip bring this to the department meeting, and also noting that council at large wanted to also include training for people in the council. We talked about Windows 10 going out of service and different things that our IT service had to say about that, about making sure all our machines were ready for that. We're not ready to do it yet. It goes out of service. It's next year on October 10th of 2025. We just want to be ready for when that happens. Found out a little bit more about police department needing some network upgrades. We're kind of talking about that right now. Chip's kind of taking the point on that one. And we also, I'm skirting a little bit, talking about records management software, which I think we'll just have a larger conversation with that, with budget, because that's going to be something that we need to earmark for next year. And
Councilman Lappin, did you, there was a grant that we had applied for records management grant that we didn't get. We could probably reapply for that.
Yeah,
just so
that's a good idea.
conversation.
Okay, and we also talked about time to set up a demo for council to check out the new cameras, but we just need to coordinate with police first to see when they have it available. If we could do that in front of the council meeting, it seemed to be a time that would be advantageous. And that's it.
And so one more for you. You should be coming back to your committee. We asked for a quote for some more cameras. City Park seems to be a blind spot.
There was some spot, like there's a problem with people using an area just off the police.
Yeah.
In a dugout area. So there was a couple, also getting a like battery powered mobile camera that we can use where, you know, we would at least feel a need to
move it throughout the neighborhoods. Great. We did, I asked the people at Store Tech to bring to your committee some pricing on if it's available. Touring is the company they're using. If they have anything that can take speed readings to follow up on the comments you and I talked about before, where I'd been at an ICON conference. So they're going to bring you that information. So, all right, I wanted you to know that we have them in to talk about those needed other areas. There's actually an area here at City Hall, that in the far corner, we've had some problems with, it's a blind spot, and so they're going to go to you with that information when they collect it. Okay?
Thanks.
Thank you. Councilwoman Gooden, committee reports.
Special projects will be meeting tomorrow at 1 o'clock, where we'll continue with Happiness Cove conversation. And we're also looking in September to also have public comment again. So we'll schedule it. I have to just check with the school first, but we're going to have another public comment in September.
All right, thank you. I also wanted to let you know that I had a conversation with Aaron Frankenfeld today at AGFTC and asked him if he could help us with a preliminary estimate of what a foot pedestrian bridge and bicycle bridge across the Hudson River coming from the BTAR Parkway to Haviland's Cove area. If he could do that for us, and he said he thought he could. So they have an annual period of time where the city makes requests for that. And
Is there any way we can get the county, Warren County and Saratoga County to kind of
pay for it? Yeah,
chip in?
I'm with you. And so if we had an initial assessment of what those things, he called it a very high level design that we could then take to both Saratoga and Warren County, because it connects Warren County bike path, it would connect the Queensbury efforts that we're making with Councilman Stroud and also the Canal Parkway.
Yeah.
So it seemed great, and I wanted you to know that, and so as soon as we get the information, I'll forward that on to you. All right, thank you. And so that's it for committee reports. First thing on our agenda here under voice vote is a resolution to approve the minutes of July 23rd, 2024 meeting of the Glens Falls County Council. 2 is a resolution to approve the clerk's monthly PVV reports. And 3 is a resolution to approve the monthly building and codes. Do we have a
So moved.
second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Under roll call vote, is there any items that the council would like to pull for discussion?
Mayor, I'd like to pull 24 just for an extension.
Sure.
And I just want to clarify that on resolution 27 that we talked about earlier, we're not actually giving an opinion, we're just forwarding this
You're
along.
referring it to the planning board for an advisory.
Yeah, we're just asking them to give us an opinion.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
And that's only for those 2 vacant
Uh-huh.
properties. So we're going to pull 24 for, say, abstention vote, Councilman?
Yes.
So, let's see, under roll call vote, resolution 4 is a resolution to increase revenue line A00999-1589, miscellaneous public safety income by $180, and increase budget expense line A23120-4479, other contracted services by $180 due to a payment from Firefly IT asset recovery. 5 is a resolution to increase revenue line A0099999-2680, insurance recovery by $1,538.92, and increase budget expense line A231204352, police department motor vehicle repair by $1,538.92 due to payment from NYMER. 6 is a resolution to authorize funds not to exceed $5,500 from ARPA to do a to be determined recreation budgetary expense line for asbestos inspection of East Field House. 7 is a resolution to increase revenue line A00999-4089 government general government aid ARPA by $5,000 to increase A67140-4479 recreation main DPW other contracted services by $5,000 to contract with CT Mail to produce structural drawings for a ball wall at the Murray Street Park. 8 is a resolution to increase revenue line A00999-4089, general government aid, ARPA, by $3,500 and increase A67140449, Rec Main DPW other contracted services by $3,500 to contract with Rosinski Hall Architecture to produce structural construction drawings for a covered pavilion and toilet room building at Murray Street Park. 9 is a resolution to decrease recreation expense line A67020-1000 personal services by $26,125 and to dispense these funds in the following amounts to be requested by expense line $125 to A67020-4429 refill fire extinguishers, $7,000 to A67020-4479 other contracted services for pool closure and chemicals, and $18,000 for A6720-1100 personal services overtime for lifeguard duties, and $1,000 to A67020-4403 travel mileage for recreational attendants to travel daily and maintain park facilities. 10 is a resolution to increase revenue line A00999-4089 government aid ARPA by $6,946 and increase expense line A56989-4479 other contracted services economic development by $6,946 to contract with Barton Lou Judas to conduct a hazardous material survey at the Tennyson Swim Club property. 11 is a resolution to increase revenue line A00999-4089 general government aid ARPA by $415,000 and increase expense line A1149044428 DPW maintenance by $415,000 to replace the roof on the city DPW building per bid CGF 24-04. Wow, sorry. Resolution 12 is a resolution to reduce expense line A1199-0-9000 contingency by $10,000 and increase expense line A113025-4479 other contracted funds by $10,000 for training of the new controller. 13 is a resolution to approve an encroachment permit for Elizabeth Hoffman, owner, tax map number 302.20-19-17, commonly known as 15 Elizabeth Street, for a curb cut to add driveway to Glens Falls Planning Board, hereby submitting following advisory opinion that the Common Council should look favor upon the application with the following conditions. 1, material used for the driveway must be permeable pavers only, and 2, a gas bollard installed to protect gas meter located parallel to driveway. 14 is a resolution to approve the following encroachment permits based on the approval layouts and in compliance with PROAG regulations. Permit number 43-2024 for 26 Ridge Street, LLC, to replace the facade on the front of the building from July 26, 27. Permit number 44204 for Patent Property Development Corp. to close off the lane in front of 513 Washington Street to connect sewer main from July 30th to 31st. Permit number 4524 for Don Kingsley Excavating LLC to tap a water main in front of 5163 South Street from August 6 to 16, 2024. Permit 46 for Tom Elliott, 12 Warren Street, to place a man lift in front of the building for repair work from August 5th through 8th. Permit 47, 2024 for Nancy Shumaki, thank you, I still butchered it. 16 Exchange Street to place a man lift in front of a parking space to paint a mural on the side of the building from August 26th to September 2nd, 2024. Encroachment permits for number 43, 2024 through 46, 2024 have been retroactively approved by Mayor Collins. 15 is a resolution to approve the following encroachment permits, number 39 to 941 for National Grid, 11125 Broadway, Albany, to install and replace gas mains on various streets in Glens Falls, following the city's standard requirements. 16 is a resolution to approve the second installment for health insurance stipend for 2024. Attached is a list of the full-time union and non-union employees who would elect not to enroll in the City of Glens Falls Health Insurance Program. Payments are defined in the CSEA, PBA, and IAFF contracts. 17 is a resolution to approve state and local project agreement, contract number D04443, City Glens Falls, New York State DOT, for the Glens Falls Connector Project, PIN number 1761.88, to accept additional New York State DOT funding as attached. 18 is a resolution to adopt a local law, number XX02044, for local law to amend vehicle and traffic number 208-48, Schedule 1, traffic control signals, and to amend traffic and vehicle 208-54, Schedule 7, stop intersections. 19 is a resolution to decrease 1A11990-9000 contingency by $821 and increase A11910-4470 insurance expense by $821 to pay insurance for the fire department for a new truck of 2024 Pierce Pumper fire truck as attached. 20 is a resolution to approve mobile food unit license 38-2024 Patrick Capino, DBA Ben & Jerry's of Saratoga, 28 Lexington Road, Saratoga Springs, to vend for Adirondack Balloon Festival, September 19th through the 22nd, 2024. 21 is a resolution with water and sewer recommendation, the approval of Q's equipment proposal for the FlexiPro 541 camera in the amount of $6,256 to be paid from ARPA funds, to authorize the mayor to enter an agreement approved by the city attorney to do so. 22 is a resolution with water sewer board recommendation, the approval of wastewater treatment plant electrical system upgrade project to be awarded to Wright Pierce in the amount of $46,811 to be paid from ARPA funds, to authorize the mayor to enter into an agreement approved by the city attorney to do so. 23 is a resolution to approve the IMA grant project with Warren County Soil and Water Conservation District. The water superintendent recommends entering into this agreement with the the Warren County Soil and Water Conservation District, and the city will purchase and provide $4,000 for the purchase of a Ventrac mower, and up to $3,200 of in-kind service match shall provide the assistant with the fieldwork, project planning, implementation, and access to the properties for this project. Funding for the project will be paid out of water and sewer budget. We're pulling 24. 25 is a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with EDR, one of four respondents of CGF 24-03 RFQ for preparation of the Smart Growth Comprehensive Plan for the City of Glens Falls under New York State Department of State Smart Growth Program, Grant C1002666 in a form approved by the city attorney. 26 is a resolution approved by the settlement of the 2022, 2023, and 2024 real tax property law. Article 7, proceeding entitled Windsor Glens Falls Partnership LLC, the board assessment review of the assessor of the City of Glens Falls in the City of Glens Falls as follows. 1, the 2022 proceeding shall be discontinued without refund or exchange of assessment. The 2023 and 2024 final assessment shall be changed and set forth in the attached stipulation. And 3, a real property tax law 727 shall apply through the 2026 assessment roll. further be resolved that the controller is hereby authorized to make payment of the appropriate refunds for excess principal taxes paid. And it be further resolved that the common council hereby authorizes special counsel for the city, Carla Williams Bittner, to sign the attached stipulation and order the settlement resolving this matter. 27, resolution for the zoning change request to the Glens Falls Planning Board for advisory opinion regarding a proposed project by Washington Street Development LLC, 13 East Notre Dame Street, tax map number 302.20-16-9, and 16 Harlem Street, tax map number 302.20-16-3, currently zoning district RC1, looking to change to CG1 as taxed. 28 is a resolution that the Common Council hereby authorizes the controller to decrease the general fund expense line A 23410-1000 Fire Department Personal Services by $67,250 and increase general fund expense line A 23410-4404 Conventions and Training by $27,928 and increase A 23410-4407 medical expenses by $5,559 and increase A 23410-4315 by uniform supplies by $31,438 and increase A 23410-4321 gas motor vehicles by $1,050 and increase A 23410-4325 diesel fuel motor vehicle by $1,275 as attached. 29 is a resolution to approve the warrant. Do we have a motion for a roll call vote?
So moved.
Do we have a second? Second. Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Clark.
Yes.
Councilman Landry.
Yes.
Councilman Palmer.
Yes.
Councilman Markle.
Yes.
And Councilman Bidden.
Yes.
Thank you. And number 24 is a resolution authorizing the community development manual payments in the amount of $24,809.08 to repay WWCCAA for support of the Glens Falls Schools Backpack Program, which provides for food for students in need, to pay an administrative and program delivery expense for the CBG program, to reimburse the city for a portion of the 2023 audit costs, and to pay to insert a legal notice for the CBG minor budget amendment. Do we have a motion for a roll call vote?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Clark.
Yes.
Councilman Landry.
Abstain.
Councilman Palmer. Councilman Markle.
Yes.
And Councilman Bidden.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. Under old business, Councilman Clark.
I have none.
Councilman Landry.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to thank the Glens Falls DPW, the Glens Falls Fire Department, the Glens Falls Police Department, along with the entire city staff for a wonderful job they did during our July thunderstorms. I think they took us all by surprise. They were fast to respond, worked many hours over many days until we were done, and they continue today on spot locations, still needing some assistance. So I applaud all of those departments for a great job that they did. I'd also like to just quickly make mention about this area, the loss of Harrison Freer. Harrison, if you knew him, was salt of the earth. He really had his thoughts on things. He was always open to discuss things, even things that he didn't like. What I liked best about him is, as a councilman on the Queensbury Town Board, he, like I, doesn't see that imaginary line between the city and the town. And I'm hoping that that imaginary line someday goes away. So the passing of Harrison will be a loss to our entire community, and we thank his community or his family for loaning him to us like they did. Thanks.
Thank you. Old business, Councilman Palmer.
Just to piggyback off of what Bob said, I have been thinking about Harrison because it was he and I who worked to lobby the county to get the Granicus for the short-term rentals, and it was a good example of him, as you said, really finding ways that we could work together to benefit all of our constituents. And sidewalks was another example because his ward and my ward abutted each other, and we had a lot of families that all went to Kensington and needed to walk to school. So I concur with your sentiments as well. I have no other business.
Thank you. Old business, Councilman Knapp.
Yeah, I'm interested in chapter 15 of City Code. It's about ethics code, and it was established in 1997. From how I read it, 15.7 says the city should have an ethics board. I don't think that one's spelled out. I just would like to give everybody a chance to examine that themselves, and then we can have more of a conversation about that. And secondly, just to piggyback on what Bob and Diana just said about Harrison Freer, he and I talked recently about the area of Western. I know that that's something that both Bob and Diana were, in favor of looking at different things we can do in terms of sidewalks and repaving, and that's the mystical borderline between the city and the town. Anything that we can do to improve pedestrian safety and children's safety in a walking school district is something that I believe everybody on this council agrees with, is something that is in our mutual interests. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Old business, Councilman Booker.
I have no business.
New business, Councilman Clark.
No new business.
Councilman Landry.
Thank you, Mayor. Two new businesses, both located in the second ward downtown, are preparing for a grand opening. There's a new bookstore right down the street here on Ridge Street. I'm going to get the name wrong. My wife will let me know that tonight because she loves romantic novels. But I believe it's called The Very Last Chapter.
One more chapter.
One more chapter? Thank you. You just got me out of trouble. And on Bay Street, Tres Vios, which in Spanish means my $3 food truck owners, are opening a takeout Mexican business there to complement their already successful food truck business. If everything works out, they hope to broaden their offerings for eat-in meals in a tavern atmosphere. So I wish both of them good luck and welcome to downtown. Some streets and sidewalks across the entire city are torn up right now and about to be replaced as part of the city's annual street and sidewalk replacement program. I would suggest you please be cautious when driving or walking in these areas under construction on some streets. I know in the second ward, we were fortunate enough to get the sidewalks and curbings taken care of on both sides of the street, but once they tore all the sidewalks out and all the curbings, the street was now drastically reduced in size, and there was times when people had to back up to get out and so on and so forth. But I met with some constituents today, and I said to them, if we had told you, or if we had shut the streets down, we would be having the discussion today of why to shut the street down. But it's hard to do all that work that needs to be done. I think it's wonderful. You can't drive almost anywhere in the city and not find some road or sidewalk construction going on. Probably one of the best things we do for our citizens every year. So, like I say, just be cautious in those areas, and before you know it, we'll be done and it'll look great. Thank you.
Thank you. New business, Councilman Conley.
I'm very excited that we awarded the contract with the comprehensive plan tonight, and, seeing the resolution on here to forward the number 27 to the zoning board and all the projects that are before the city, I just think this is going to really help us make these decisions in such a more cohesive way. So I really would encourage the public to be on the lookout, because part of this process is going to be having workshops and sending out surveys, and we really, really need your input so that we can make these decisions based on that. Also, I had brought up, I guess this is kind of old business or new, a while ago, just wondering if there's anything we can do about these agendas to kind of consolidate them. This was another doozy. Just wondering if
and
we
this is
consider that.
consolidated.
Yeah,
because there's,
there was four that were in one,
Yeah.
but still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just seems like, I mean, I know there are options, I think I forwarded Megan, the clerk, one, but, you know, we could do a consent agenda, there are other things. I don't know that we need to do this, but, you know,
Yeah.
just wondering if that was considered.
It's definitely considered.
Okay.
Yeah. Councilman Lappin, sorry, new business.
Just, this is probably old business too, but I was just curious where we are with our Complete Streets Task Force and exactly, you know, what our vision is for, you know, empowering them to weigh in on different things that we're considering doing, especially when we're doing so many things like Bob was just saying about, you know, there's, for me, I was walking, I walk around the neighborhood a lot, as everybody probably knows. I was over by the school, I was really happy to see that Quaid and then also, I have misplaced everything in a office reconfiguration at my house, and I can't find where the sidewalks list is. I don't know if
Resend?
if you could resend that to me, I'd appreciate it.
Sure.
But the sidewalks over by the school aren't done, and I thought that it was the sidewalks would be done around the same time as the repaving, because putting in curbing and everything, especially when we're talking about the accessibility pads, those haven't been completed around the school, so I just want to make sure that that's on some schedule.
Sure. I don't off the top of my head know what ones were or what, but I'll send those lists to you, and
Okay.
then have you review it with Jeremy if there's a question of what something's being done.
Again, it's not
Yeah.
new business, but
No, it's all good. I mean, it's fantastic to see, and
I know Jeremy reworked the schedule because they were supposed to be over on South Street, but they pushed that to be around the school to get that.
Yeah.
so I can't tell you, but I do know that there was a mistake made, that we laid a corner that wasn't done right, and we're having it fixed. So I do know that we're looking, I know about the process a little bit better, Jeff's
I
experience.
think every year I found something that needed to be redone.
Yeah, so there is a process, and we can talk about that
Okay.
separately too, that'd be great.